Is Jillian Michaels a host on Newsmax now? Or is she a guest on there? Or is she just on there because they offered her a really bizarre filter? You notice, like, there's certain people that have the same kind of, like, redneck, but not like rednecks. Often it's about the back of your neck because you're a farm worker, which is why they were called rednecks. Unlike leathernecks, which, if you're not familiar, they were World War II fighters, and because they dealt with fighters that carried bayonets and knives a lot, the Germans especially carried a lot of knives, so they would wear these leather cuffs around their neck to protect themselves from having their throat slit, because these guys would, in a fight, they would try to slit your throat, so these guys would wear a leather cuff around their neck. They were leathernecks. I don't know what this is, but they all have this same rigid red scrote-looking neck thing going on. Maybe they all had the same acid treatment. Maybe they just go, maybe we only see them when they've just been to the esthetician and they're getting some sort of a rub down. Maybe that's it. I don't know. But she goes, it's crazy that nobody is excited about RFK finding autism cause. So I didn't know that, Jillian. Has he found the cause? He found it? Well, I'm ready to be excited. Let's see. Let me guess. It ain't vaccines.
Well, yesterday in Washington, HHS Secretary...
Sorry, RFK Jr. digs into root causes of autism. And he found...
Robert F. Kennedy Jr. addressed an often divisive topic within the scientific community, and that would be the cause of...
No, it isn't. That ship has sailed.
Autism in children. RFK Jr. making the following remarks at a news conference.
This is a preventable disease. We know it's an environmental exposure. It has to be. Genes do not cause epidemics. They can provide a vulnerability. You need an environmental toxin.
Okay, that's not proof. That's an assertion. Also, that autism itself is not, even if it's not genetic, that doesn't mean you're going to find the crossroads. It could be, 80 different things combining, and that's what narrowly creates it in some folks. Not like, oh, they all got all these people get this one thing, and a bunch of people just respond to it badly. That would be the genetic component, asshole.
In 3 weeks, and probably we're hoping in 2 weeks, we're going to announce a series of new studies to identify precisely what the environmental toxins are that are causing it. This has not been done before.
So it's vaccines. So you're going to say it's vaccines? I mean, you said it was vaccines all these years. So, I mean, is that why it only takes 2 weeks? It's going to be vaccines. Which vaccines is it going to be? What do you think? Pertussis? Is it going to HPV? What do you think it's going to be? It's going to be that mixed with Skittles. I blame Skittles.
And we're going to do it in a thorough and comprehensive way. And
yeah, in 2 weeks. Nothing says thorough and comprehensive like 2 weeks.
Captain's log.
Get back to with an answer to the American people very, very quickly.
Yeah, very quickly. Well, it doesn't mean it'll be right. It'll just quick. It'll be quick.
Follow the science no matter what it says. And we will have some of the answers by September.
Sorry, is this video from the future? What do you mean 2 weeks?
And among those who support RFK's push to determine the cause of autism is Jillian Michaels, the host of the Keeping It Real podcast, joining...
Hang the fuck up. Okay, wait. No. The issue with RFK Jr. was not that he is looking for the cause of autism. Fuck you. People have been looking for it all over the place. There's a lot of work being done in this area, and it continues to be done. People don't support RFK Jr. because he's looking for the cause of autism. They support RFK Jr. because they think he found it, and they blame vaccines. His whole sales pitch was not, I'm going to be the guy that gets to the bottom of what's causing all this. He ran on, it's the vaccines that cause it, while getting himself vaccinated and his children vaccinated, so he's full of shit. But on top of that, it was his assertion that he knew what caused it that killed a bunch of fucking people.
Jillian, always good to see you. So RFK, the secretary, they're pledging that he will have some answers by September. It's ambitious. But what are your thoughts? Are you encouraged by that, that someone here that is within the health department, the secretary from this administration, actually wants to find out more about autism, the cause of autism? Your thoughts there?
First of all, wait 1 second. Son of a bitch. Okay. Let's get this. When was the timing on this? There we go. Let's see. On December 23rd, 2024, Biden signed into law the Bipartisan Autism Collaboration Accountability Research, Education, and Support Act, or the Autism CARES Act of 2024. It's the most comprehensive federal law addressing the urgent needs of children, adolescents, and adults with autism over its 17-year history. This law has resulted in a significant increase in our understanding of autism and related neurodevelopmental disabilities. The CARES Act is crucial to maintaining and improving the monitoring, training, and research programs focused on improving the lives of children and adults with autism and other neurodevelopmental disabilities and their families. There is still much work to be done to improve the quality of lives of people with autism and their families. AUCD is tremendously grateful for the leadership of the Representative Chris Smith, Henry Cuellar, all the folks that signed onto it. It creates a coordinated response and increases investments across the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services to address the rising numbers of children and adults diagnosed with autism. The reauthorized CARES Act continues key programs and investments such as AUCD's Leadership Education and Related Disabilities, the LEND programs, which trains health professionals from a variety of disciplines professionals to their ability to screen, refer, and provide services. Members of the AUCD includes a national network serving every state and territory of 68 university centers for excellence, the UCEDDs, 60 leadership, education, and neurodevelopment and related disabilities, the LENS programs, and 15 intellectual and developmental disabilities research centers, the IDDRCs. Together, these centers and programs provide a direct national impact through the direct services, the development of new professionals, and the use of new knowledge generated from our research. This has been around. He reauthorized it in 2024. I don't know when it's 17 years old, so it's been around for quite a while. What's the other one? Hold on. Let's see. Hold on. Autism. Hold on. I'm going to try to find this. Hold on. Quit. Yeah. Okay. While researchers haven't pinpointed a single cause of autism, evidence suggests it is likely a combination of genetic and environmental factors interacting during brain development, which is just what I fucking said. Thank you. Genetic factors, including spontaneous mutations and inherited variations, play a significant role. Environmental factors, such as prenatal events and exposure to certain substances, also contribute to the development of autism. There's genetic factors, the de novo mutations, inherited variations, syndromic versus non-syndromic ASD, environmental factors, prenatal events, exposure to certain toxins, maternal health during pregnancy, postnatal environmental factors, exposure after birth, fetal origins of autism. Some studies suggest that certain maternal health conditions during pregnancy may be linked to an increased risk of autism in the offspring, interplay factors, blah, blah, blah. Okay. Here's Harvard in 2020. Abnormally levels of a key protein observed in brains of young men with autism spectrum disorder. I'm not sure, but I think February of 2020 is before this September. And they didn't stop looking. National Institutes of Health. This is, when's this one? 2006. Tracing the Origins of Autism, A Spectrum of New Studies is the title of this one. This fucking, I don't understand. I'll try not to get upset, and I'll get very, like, irritated, yeah? Well, I don't understand what they're saying.
It's not Irish. It's not English.
How are you? Fair, what is my kindness for the horses, you know?
It's just, well, it's just pikey.
Related video on this from a friend of mine, Krista in Canada. Excuse me, RFK Jr., but no, my autistic kids are not destroying our family. What is destroying families? Ableism, misinformation, ignorant comments like the one you made yesterday. You don't get to use our kids as political pawns. You don't get to paint neurodivergent people as burdens just because you don't understand them. I mean, that's the Trump way in a lot of ways. And again, the idea is that if it's curable, you want to cure it. But the idea that you can also use them as a cudgel because you don't like vaccines, or you're pandering to fucking hippie chicks you're fucking on the campaign trail, and it's easy to, like, lead them up to the bedroom if you sell them a raft of shit like vaccines cause autism. They're like, oh my God, finally somebody's speaking the truth. Sure, this drink sure is salty, glunk.
Very much so. Listen, can there be a genetic predisposition? Of course there can. But what he's saying is, if genes load the gun, it's something environmental that is pulling the trigger, and he wants.
Yeah, that's true of almost every genetically based disease, dummy. Of course. And again, what makes you think that you'll be able to remove that environmental trigger? Stupid. And by the way, I'm sure what this loads up is she's convinced that it's vaccines that have it.
To get to the bottom of what that is.
Yes, and people have been trying quite a bit. My point is, he didn't invent this shit, and he's not going to solve it by fucking September. And you're not going to like the answer he gives. If he actually bases any of it on fucking science and they can show their fucking work, you're going to be upset. Because you think that you can avoid that off switch. And if it's fucking like microplastics and everything, get ready for the entire Trump administration to tell RFK Jr. to go fuck himself when they look at the bill for removing plastics from the environment.
Autism has skyrocketed over the past 2 decades.
Yeah, because we also recognize it, and the spectrum is broader. We used to just call them different names. It's like cancer numbers went up after we stopped using the word consumption.
1 in 50 20 years ago. Now it's 1 in 31 kids. And it's crazy that not everyone is elated about the fact that he's trying to get to the bottom of this.
I'm not elated about it because I don't trust him. He came in with a bias, and when his answers show up and you don't like them, you're not going to buy it. You're not going to go, oh, I guess vaccines are fine. You're not going to do that. You're going to go into some bullshit about the government's hiding something from us and the deep state or some horse shit like that. If you're not, here's the problem I have, Ms. Jillian, is if you're excited that he's looking into it, why haven't you been excited when Harvard does? Why aren't you excited when the National Institute of Health and Health and Human Services have been looking into it since 2002? Why would I be excited that he's looking at it now? Because he's biased in one fucking direction? You think that's the problem? Unless you think that all these people have known for a long time that there was one thing in vaccines that was making all these kids autistic, and they were just like, I don't know, but it makes them cheap. I don't know. It's a great preservative. I mean, who cares if we lose, 20 out of 50 fucking kids over the next couple of decades? I mean, cha-ching. Like, if you actually believe that shit, you're a lunatic.
For one, am very happy with what he's been doing, and I can't wait to see the results.
Indeed.
I know what the results are. 3 dead kids from measles so far. That's the only change I've seen HHS before to HHS now. That's really the only material difference. The only thing that's different between last year and this year is we lost 3 kids to fucking measles for no reason. And they won't be the last.
Information, right? Like, let's find out. Let's hear what he finds. That would be great.
Exactly.
Totally. So here's a good idea. Why don't you go look at the studies that have already been put there, that they've already put out, that you can Google. Fuck, go to ChatGPT, go to Gemini, go to Claude, go to any of the, whatever your AI, go to Grok. Fucking Grok will tell you that there's been a myriad of studies. It'll even do a broad-based study of all the studies and give you a generalized answer. And it ain't going to be vaccines.
Be
We
wonderful.
should be asking questions.
Yeah.
You're spot on.
Yeah, I'm just asking questions like the Jewish question. And
I think we should be outraged that no one has done this previously.
Right.
they have, you fucking twit. Jesus Christ. Oh my God. That no one's, what do you think people do? Are you out of your fucking mind? Do these people think like, is that what happens when you just live on your fucking phone all the time? Are these just screenagers? Again, this is a study from the National Institute of Health.gov, NIH.gov, a spectrum of studies, multiple studies, and then they're like mixing and matching, trying to figure out what could be the upsurge. Some scientists believe that much of the upsurge is the result of an increased awareness of ASDs or of the autism spectrum disorder. As they broaden the spectrum, that made more kids like that, or changes in diagnostic criteria, which would suggest that the true prevalence of the disorders has been stable over time. Others disagree. It's premature to state that there is no increase in prevalence, says W.I.N. Lipkin, a professor of neurology and anatomy and neurobiology at Columbia. None of the studies to date has been designed to definitively address this issue. Here you go. There's the charge. So, childhood autism risk from genetics and environment charge project is unique among the large ASD and epidemiological studies. It focuses solely on autistic disorder, and it emphasizes a search for environmental factors, including a broad array of chemicals in food, consumer products, ambient air, as well as infectious and medical exposures. That would include vaccines that might be linked to the disorder. And the study is funded by the NIH, and it started in fucking 2000. I mean, this is from fucking 2006. So no, I'm not reassured that this human scrotum wandering around fucking hippie chicks by blathering conspiratorial Alex Jones nonsense into their ear canal while he's on the campaign trail is somehow the savior of kids with autism.
That's where we should be really upset, is why hasn't this been done before?
I'll tell you what's upsetting me is that you pretend to give a shit about it and you don't know it has. You assume it hasn't. No wonder you fuckers voted for Trump on that station. Like, it's just like this enforced fucking ignorance. Is that how these folks live?
The fact that it's being done now, and I've heard the top criticism of, he's getting people's hopes up that we can have this by September, and that's not realistic. Who cares?
Well, I think partly the people who've been working on it for a long time that know there's no there there. They have done studies on it, that he's getting people's hopes up, that there's a magical switch. There's, that it loads the gun. They found the finger on the trigger and you'll be able to cut that finger off and it'll never be able to fire again. And that's a problem because a lot of people like her do believe that. You can see that she's all 4 whites. She's showing her whole eyeball in this, which is like, this is what you see in like fucking hypnosis victims.
It's 6 months later. Who cares? The key is that we're looking for answers.
The key is that we have always been looking for answers, and you didn't give a fuck until now. So here's something, Jillian. I'm gonna suggest this. I've never. She's on as a guest, I guess. Right? Because she's not on their station. She's on the show. Here's what I would suggest. Fucking Google some autism studies, and you'll find hundreds. Nobody is sleeping on this shit. Nobody shrugged it off and went, fuck these kids. Or went, we can't say anything because it's vaccines. It's insulting. It's gross. You're full of shit. And if you, even if she was on here saying, well, they should have done it this way. We've seen their studies before, and they always seem fixated on talking themselves into a corner, and they never reach a conclusion because they refuse to go down this road. They refuse to ask the hard questions about vaccines, even though they've done it several times, right? Even if she says it that way, that's very different. Not accepting the results is different than just fucking pretending they don't exist.
We should be really happy about that, in my opinion.
No, I agree. The New York Times, of course, has a different viewpoint. So I'll just share what was published recently. Writing, the scientists have not ruled out the possibility that both genes and environmental factors could influence whether a child develops autism. Still, there is no evidence to suggest that autism can be avoided, and researchers immediately criticized that suggestion. Experts said there's a legitimate research to be done examining potential environmental factors, but recoiled at Mr. Kennedy's apparent all-or-nothing approach, which seemed to discount entirely the merits of continuing to study the genetic underpinnings of the condition. Jillian, just your thoughts there and their viewpoint.
Absolutely. I liken this to skyrocketing rates of obesity and
you can't diet and stop being autistic. You might have an allergy that affects your cognitive function, and you can take that away, and doesn't exacerbate elements of your cognitive function that exacerbates your autism, perhaps, or your ADHD. That's entirely. Grains tend to do that. Certain cytotoxins in vegetables will do that. That's a possibility, but it doesn't get rid of the autism.
the drug companies love to push on the public that obesity is genetic and it's a disease, despite the fact that in 2013...
Hold on. Wait a minute. The medical community does not push obesity as a fucking genetic disease. What are you talking about? That is not the prevailing thought on the obesity epidemic in the United States by any stretch. Some people are predisposed to carry extra weight, and therefore they have a harder time shedding it, and they put it on easier due to bad diet or extraordinary number of calories or a response to insulin, insulin sensitivity due to the amount of sugar in their food. That would be the sort of genetic precursor to that. But none of them are like, well, you can exercise all you want, but you're not going to lose the weight because you just have the genes to weigh 1,000 pounds and you're just going to be stuck in a fucking apartment. People are going to just have to pour fucking Big Macs down your gullet until you die. Stupid. No.
All of the experts on a panel within the American Medical Association voted that it wasn't, in fact, a disease and that it was a predisposition. So when you look at what has triggered skyrocketing rates of obesity, arguably it's a more sedentary lifestyle and a huge amount of ultra-processed food.
Right, but not a disease. And again, the people who are obese may have a genetic predisposition to carry or keep more weight, and they might have to exercise more, or they have to modify their diets even more stringently than other people to keep their weight low. So when I did the 23andMe, which God knows where my genes are now, I hope they're being used properly by the people that are cloning me in Siberia. But one of the things it said is that I have a predisposition genetically to be underweight. Okay, it says that genetically I am predisposed to be underweight. It does not mean that as I'm older, I won't have trouble getting rid of, abdominal fat like men do and that kind of stuff, like whatever. I'm going to, if I lean one direction or the other just by, coin flip, I'm going to weigh less than my counterparts of my same height. Okay, genetically. If that's true, and it is, then it stands to reason that there is a reasonable portion of the world that is on the other side of that has a predisposition towards being heavier. Obviously, there's some, medium folks in there that we run into all the time and are irritated by or whatever. I don't know, whatever. Maybe that's the dad bod dudes. But the point being is that if I can have a genetic predisposition to be underweight, somebody can have a genetic predisposition to be overweight. And therefore, the sedentary lifestyle and processed foods will have more of an impact on them than it will on me. And so if they want to reverse those impacts, they are going to have to do more work to reverse those impacts than I do. Doesn't make it a disease. It's a genetic predisposition. There are people, though, that put on weight just because they're slovenly fucks. We're not talking about them. It's like when you're dealing with homelessness, there are people who are homeless because they are mentally ill. They have to be institutionalized. They're never going to have a job in a fucking apartment and a family and get their shit together. They're broken. Their brains don't work. They're either from drugs or mental illness, but they need help. Then there are people who are, alcoholics and they need treatment, or they're drug addicts and they need treatment. And once they get treatment, there's a very strong possibility they can work their way back into society, but it's going to be a long road. And they need a mixture of institutional help and shelter together, and perhaps keeping drugs away from them for that period of time. And then there are people who just fall through the fucking cracks, who miss rent and they end up sleeping in their car and they're like, fuck, and they need help to get back up. And so simple programs can get them an apartment, Section 8 housing, something like that, get them back in a place and get them off the street, right? So they're all homeless, but they all are solved by different methods. And then there are, which we had all over Venice, have all over San Francisco, Portland has a bunch of them, the intentionally homeless, people who are totally comfortable with like a vagabond drug lifestyle. They are literally drug tourists. They go to cities. If they hear that a city like Portland, when it legalized drugs, there's a shit ton of people from the San Francisco Bay Area that went up to Portland to live and do drugs because it was legal and you didn't have to worry about going to jail and you could just sleep in the parks and they wouldn't do anything about it. Those folks are assholes, and they're different than the people who fell through the cracks, who are addicts that need help before they can straighten themselves out, and they really are under the thumb of that, and people who are mentally ill, right? Okay, so we've got 4 categories of homelessness there. If you want to solve homelessness, you have to solve for all 4. You can only solve for different degrees of all of them. You can 100% solve for the mentally ill. You can institutionalize them. You can build mental institutions, and you can take people off the street who hear voices, cannot dress themselves, are covered in sores, and their brains are effectively broken, and you can medicate them and then try to get them some level of physical comfort until they pass away of natural causes without drugs basically addling them until somebody runs them over with a car. That's 100% institutionalization. The other group, you can put in a program, and if they stay in the program, they can have access to moving from a shelter to someplace with a private room, and that has stages. And about a third of those folks, you can work with. They'll make it, and it's a rotating thing because the other 2/3 will either cascade into the drug tourists or will burn their brains out and become mentally ill. But a third of them you can salvage, and you should try to salvage them all, but you can only solve a third, okay? Then there's the group that falls through the cracks. All of those can be saved, like fucking a suit and a haircut, jobs programs, fucking get them a college education where there's a dorm and they can live in the dorm. They'll be happy as anybody to get back on their feet and start a new life. You could solve for 100% of those. The institutionalized and the people who fall into the cracks, you could solve. The drug tourists, the fuckers who choose it, who think the world is Burning Man and are basically sovereign citizens, you can't solve any of it. They have to come to their own conclusion after a while, and it usually requires jail, ladies and gentlemen. So there's 4 different areas of homelessness. If you care about homelessness, you have to address all 4. When you're talking about this shit, when it comes to obesity, there are a myriad of reasons, from acute gluttony to a genetic predisposition or a thyroid issue or an insulin issue where people can't help but put on a ton of weight, and it's really frustrating, and nothing they do seems to they put on so much weight so quickly it kind of shocks their system, and moving hurts their joints. So working out has an extra level of pain and difficulty to it on top of the fact that they have to do it. And then there are people like me that I can take working out for granted, which is sometimes a problem because, if I stop working out, I still look okay. But if I want to truly be healthy, I have to work harder because because I'm that close to it. You can kind of, that's where those like people who are like, they seem perfectly healthy. And then the reason that is because they took it for granted. They look relatively healthy, especially compared to everybody else. So there's a cascade. And what this asshole wants to do is, because she's in the business of shaming people into losing weight, specifically because she has a narrow band of customers, and her customers are the people who ate too much and know it and want to get their act together. And so that's who they go to. And so she's used to talking to those people. And so she is used to only discussing this issue with people in one slice of this entire fucking pizza pie of why people become overweight or underweight. And you'll notice also that she's not discussing people who become anorexic or bulimic or painfully underweight, which is just as damaging and dangerous. She doesn't address them at all because she can't blame processed foods in this kind of externalized boogeyman. This is what happens when you don't realize you're in a cul-de-sac.
How come 20 years ago, right, if this is genetic, how come 20 years ago it was 1 in 50 kids and now it's 1 in 31? That's a quantum leap for genetics.
Because of the volume of food. You're genetically predisposed if you have access to the calories. The access to calories has gone up. That's why.
So wouldn't the argument
And monosodium glutamate. I don't know what to tell you. Fucking Doritos.
be, how do we get back to where we were 20 years ago and arguably 50 years ago? What is
Yeah, coffee, hard-boiled eggs, the Columbo breakfast, and then or steak and eggs if you're a detective, um, and gruel for children. I think that will work. Just something that makes them feel full, but they aren't, so they stay skinny. And a lot of butter on stuff. Full fat, no skim anything, because your body won't stop craving stuff until it's satiated. And if you eat, well, it's another conversation.
behind the skyrocketing rates? It can't just be genes. It doesn't work that way.
No one said it's just genes. That's the point. No one said it's just genes. That's a matter of fact, in these studies, it's all talking about how when genes are triggered by environmental factors. The assumption, though, from her point of view, is that the environmental factors are directly, she's equating it with obesity because that's her realm, that it must be food related. Now, it might be, but it might not be, the processed foods that she's made a boogeyman of. It might not even be MSG or any of that stuff. It might very well be the prevalence of grains, for example, that we went into this thing of like, we're trying to be healthier, so we put more grains in things when people have a reaction to it. Even like peanut allergies, which have shifted a lot, and we had a big rise in those, and then it's dipped a lot over time. There's still people with that allergy, but there's fewer and fewer kids that have it. And of course we have, the available, remedies for it. But part of it was because there was a fungus on the shells that was getting into the processing for a long time. And then they kind of quietly were like, oh shit, that's what it is. And they got rid of it. And so it's improved over time. Right? Point being is that she's used to dealing with like food and food additives and that kind of stuff because she's trying to get people back to a purer diet, which is a reasonable thing to do. And again, if you eat whole foods and you cook them yourself, it's often cheaper than even the processed stuff. It won't seem, and don't undersalt it, and don't, sodium and salt aren't the same thing. High sodium and like additives, it's not the same as sodium chloride, table salt, pink sea salt or whatever on your food. And then eat full fat stuff and you'll be satiated. The U.S. sells rice to China. It's true. We sell a lot more soy to China than we sell rice. I mean, China buys 80 to 85% of their food from there, but I look good with my skinny jeans. There you go. GERD is a huge issue now too. GERD. And yeah, and read your book. Okay, Kathy. um, let's see, if you're being exposed to pure sodium, you're probably working in a chemical industry. Exactly. GERD is gastrointestinal reflux. It's like right. It's chronic reflux. It's the singer's nightmare. It's actually why, and this is curious, I don't really have acid reflux as a problem, but a lot of times singers will get it because they squeeze their abdomen, their belly, and physically they'll squeeze acid up their esophagus, and it will hurt your vocal cords. A lot of people get that. So I will sometimes eat like a Tums if I have a big night of singing, to lower the amount of acid in my system, because while I'm singing, sometimes you'll push for those notes and it'll GERD. Yeah. Hitting sugar, crouching salt, right. Tums are yeah, I don't do any purple pill kind of stuff. It would just be topical to that evening. And it's not because I have it, it's to protect against it. It's kind of a prophylactic, if you will. The issue that I have, and I'll let you guys go, I went over, but I think I'm more irritated with how much these sorry, what's that organization you support for better farming practices? Well, Robin, I did the I mean, there's Farm Sanctuary, who are lovely, but also I raised money for Prop 2, which was the like ethical farming bill in California. That's another thing that has to do with farm animals and how they're treated. So there's a lot to the American diet being co-opted for what's tasty and the like. But the irony is that a lot of the damage, I think, that's been done, and this is my own personal opinion about this, has largely been done in an attempt to get people to eat better, because they were coming from a position of, okay, we've done studies and this seems to be good. So if a little is good, a lot is better, which is usually wrong. And the greatest example is, I think, that it was like in defense of his, how much weed and how strong the weed he smokes, Cat Williams had this thing is like, like if you have a headache, 2 aspirin will do you right. But if you have, 15 of those things will be the last headache you ever had, right? Is that more isn't necessarily better. And if you really want to look at how people lived a long time ago and how healthy they are, look at their diet. It's, look at the meals they ate for real. They weren't frozen dinners. They weren't they were basically, there was some vegetable dish, a piece of meat of some sort, a piece of chicken, a piece of beef, a piece of pork, something like that. Mashed potatoes, usually to make yourself feel full if you were working class like we were, and a milk, full whole milk. And the reality is they consumed a lot more fat, but they were thinner, because your body gets satiated. It doesn't need it, doesn't crave. It's not hungry all the fucking time. And different grains. Well, that's always part of it too. But the crucial part of it is that when in doubt, if you're ever, worried about that kind of stuff, start trying to just simplify. I've always said this, and this is my own, I will never, ever try to be an RFK about this stuff. But I decided for myself a long time ago that if I'm ever depressed, it means I'm thirsty. And if I'm ever angry, it means I'm hungry. And the simple reason for this is that this is my logic when I was a kid. And it works. It's worked out so far. If you're ever feeling sad for sad's sake, hydrate yourself. Because as we evolved, if you are hungry and you need food, being aggressive is helpful. Biting something, attacking something, killing something, climbing something, pulling something, stealing something from, your neighbor. Anger is your friend when you're starving. If you need, because it will make anger can make you nuts. And if you're nuts, you will attack an animal bigger than you and kill it to get some food. Okay. And so we've evolved to the point where when we're hungry, we get hangry. That's where that comes from. It's a natural process because you can do something about hunger most of the time. Even if it's literally cannibalism. Like there's a point where your brain just goes, kill something and eat it, right? Like that anger serves in the process. It does not serve when there's no water around. If there's no water around, you can be pissed all you want. You can scream at the sky, but no water's coming down. So if you're between the rains and there's very little water and your body will slow down and will conserve energy. You don't want to sweat, you don't want to release any of it because you got to preserve as much water as you can. So you will mute, you will lower yourself, you will shrink down and, thirsty looks like this, whereas angry looks like this, right? Like hangry looks like that. So, and this is not about sadness, which I think is a genuine feeling. I'm talking about depression, which is not based on a sad moment, but a generalized feeling of like, bleh. Your body will conserve water and conserve motion and slow down because the rains aren't going to be here for a while and we've only got so much water to go around. And maybe if the dew happens tomorrow, I can drink a little of that, but I'm not expecting any water coming in. So your body will start to mute itself. Okay. So you will be depressed, literally in the material sense. Yes, you'll sleep a lot. You'll conserve your energy because you can't make it rain no matter what you do. And in the, maybe there was a time where you can keep walking, you can trudge to go to where water is. Like your body is kind of built. Like that's why depression, sometimes you can solve that by going for a walk, not a run. Same thing. Your body feels like we're moving towards water. Right? So even if maybe you'll still be depressed after you drink some water, but and have some electrolytes in it so you absorb it. You need enough salt. There's a reason why salt is so valuable. They used to say the phrase "he's worth his salt" is an old Roman phrase where they used to pay their soldiers in salt because it was so valuable, and it's how you absorbed water and kept it in your body. That you needed some with it. That's why, like even the Gatorades and this stuff have salt in them. They have electrolytes. So if you're feeling down, drink some water. This is my advice. If you're feeling angry, have a bite to eat. And if you're going to have a bite to eat, have something very fatty. Even if it's a fucking pat of butter. If you're pissed off and you're just like, fuck, God damn it, eat a pat of butter. I'm not kidding. Now, you might still be mad, but you'll be more in control while you're mad. And you might still be sad when you drink water, but you'll be more in control of your sad. It won't be you won't get out over your skis with that. Does that make sense to everybody? Yes. Yeah, not Brondo. Don't drink that. The other thing too is if you're depressed and you're feeling like panicked or anxious, pay attention to your posture because more and more people are on their phones like this, or they're like this, or they're leaning over like this, and you're squishing your abdomen. You're squashing your lungs down on your diaphragm. And that means you're breathing in the top of your chest. And so there's like 3 places in these are your full lungs. And you breathe in, your belly comes out. Okay. So if you're scared and you're running from a monster, you use the top of your lungs. That's how, like when you're running and you're grasping, all the oxygen exchange happens up here. And there's an AB logic to your breathing that says, if I'm breathing like I'm scared, I must be scared. Even if you're just breathing like you're scared because you squashed the bottom parts of your lungs and you only have room to breathe into the top of your lungs. Does that make sense? If you press against your chest, like if you have a band on her like this, which is why a lot of trans men who wear binders or women who wear corsets a lot of times can be very anxious in spite of the reality around them and not realize that they are constricting their rib cage and therefore limiting their breath to the top of their lungs, which is where panic happens. And your body will go, if we're breathing like this, we must be running from a monster. So you get anxious, okay? So what you want to do is breathe into your gut for those moments. That's why all yoga, I will argue, tricks your body into not being able to breathe into your upper chest. So if you ever do like a pose like this, right? I'm very sweaty. It's hot in here. Or you're doing this kind of twists or whatever, where you're doing a stance or whatever. The reason is because by putting your hands out like this or whatever, it literally pushes in because of the muscle needed to keep your arms stable on your upper chest, and your breath has to go into your belly, which calms you. So what I would say is if you're ever feeling anxious, and believe me, there's a lot of reasons to feel anxious these days, nothing wrong with it, not shaming you for it, but you should feel the right amount of anxious for what's really going on, as opposed to the wrong amount of anxious or an exacerbated level. So breathe into your gut. And if you ever feel yourself like, oh, fuck, look at yourself, and you're probably on your phone like this, or some equivalent, or you're sitting watching TV and your chest is compressed on this. So you're breathing like that. Just recognize it. Just recognize it when it happens. Doesn't mean that you don't have a right to be anxious or that your fears aren't warranted, but you only want your anxiety and your anger and your sadness to match the real circumstances in your life and no more. We don't want indulgent sorrow or self-involved narcissistic anger or aimless panic, because I believe true sadness, genuine anger, and concern, which is anxiety before it's turned in on itself, actually has value. Humans have value because of all of us, not just when we're the little piece we can get away with being. It's why my symbol that I use, this guy right here, is, 4 arrows intertwined, pulling against each other, creating balance, because you're not your best self or you're not your worst self. You're the tension between the two. That's who you really are. The person, when I'm talking to you, when I meet you, I'm not talking to the best person you could hope to be or the worst shit you've done in your life. I'm talking to the person who balances those two things, and like they're on a fucking balance beam or a high wire, with their jobs and hobbies balanced on a pole, trying to keep themselves steady. That's who you really are. It's who I am. We're not our best selves or our worst selves. We're the tension between those things. And when you're really angry, you should own it. You should never have to worry, am I just angry for the sake of it? Am I being indulgent or full of shit? Am I wallowing in my own sorrow? Am I making this sadness about me when it's really about somebody else? Am I indulging in this sadness so much that I am fucking useless to the people around me when I could be helping? You shouldn't have to worry about that. And the way you avoid worrying about that is just check in on your physical self and go, okay, I'm not breathing right, and I need a glass of water. Right. And I'm going to go get something to eat so I don't bite anybody. Zula's happy birthday. So anyways, there ended the lesson. I just thought I would reiterate that. I think it's super important. Tomorrow, Rob Glenn will be joining us for Friday Eye. Boy, is there a lot of stuff going on there. Holy shit. And then tomorrow, I got to do this fucking Easter thing, because maybe I have to come back on the air and do it, because Trump spoke at this fucking Easter thing, and it was just awful. Anyways, love you guys. Take care of yourselves and take care of somebody else. And I will, let's see. Does this button actually work? I made it. It should. We'll see. So far, so good. Hey.